to another Megiddo Gaming video. Tonight, what we're going to be looking at is different roles for the Trickster Rogue to play. So this build that I'm working on currently is a support slash maybe healer build. I'm still doing a lot of testing on it, but I'll show you what I've got this far. The Lilith accounts for about 1 million points healed here. The other million or so is actually due to my Holy Avenger enchantment. I've tested with the Holy Avenger, the Vorpal, and the Fey Touched enchantment, and there really isn't too much of a difference. I thought there would be a huge one because the cooldown on the Holy Avenger enchantment, which of course is only at Transcendent, it's not at Unparalleled yet. But there really isn't that much major difference other than the fact that my healing increases greatly. So the way that this build works, and right now I'm running it solo, so there's probably a lot of tweaks to be made, and that's why I'm going to be looking for your input if you've tried this. So right now the control aspect of it is running the Scoundrel Paragon path and focusing, of course, on the concussive strikes, the Skullcracker, of course, and then everything else that can do damage. So I've got 25% more damage who are under a control effect. I'm dealing enough damage to lower end mobs in multitude to compensate for my lack of damage output. Now, of course, what I'm working on here, you would not want to use against a boss. We are going to be doing that build in the next video. And I'm also going to update, if you've given me any feedback, the changes that I've made that have made this better. So a lot of stuff is pretty standard. Action advantage, weapon mastery. I may look at adding stuff in toughness because I do have some powers that do base off my health points. Damage through Cunning Ambusher, of course. Damage through Endless Assault. Damage through Disciple of Strength. Damage through Scoundrel Training. And then with this class, I've been focusing a lot on deflect, and that'll show in the Scoundrel as well. Increase your deflection chance, as well as using the skill, the power Impossible to Catch. Back alley tactics is usually standard, whether you're going Executioner or Saboteur. So of course we kept it in Scoundrel. I'm not looking at being at the top of the Paingiver board here. I'm looking at keeping my team alive and allowing them to deal more damage than they could usually do. It's nice to have 4 people surviving and dealing more damage, or helping them to debuff an enemy to allow them to do more damage than just one person. And I think that's one thing that we take for granted as the Trickster classes. This is not meant to be the top DPS class. Really isn't. A lot of people say, oh, it should be the best single point, everything like that. No. The role of the Trickster Rogue in even tabletop D&D is to be there to throw smoke screens, to confuse the enemies, and then allow your group to take advantage of those. So that's what we're focusing on in this build. So we've got the dazes, we've got the stuns, we've got debuffs. So powers, we're actually using Sly Flourish instead of Duelist Flurry. And I've tested that within this build. There's actually no major difference between the two. And like I said, this is going to be for the groups of mobs. This isn't going to be for the boss. So Duelist Flurry, we'll save that for the next build video that I'm doing. Impossible to Catch, of course, has to be slotted, give us that extra damage output as well as our survivability, and to break free from control effects. That's critical. And then every Trickster Rogue, as far as I'm concerned, should have Smoke Bomb slotted. There really isn't a downside to Smoke Bomb as far as I've seen, of course, other than dazing the opponent only works for them lower level creatures, not like the T-Rex, Allosaurs, or bosses. But should definitely still be slotted because that does also, even against a boss that's immune to control effects, increase the amount of AP gain you get because of per tick damage that it deals. I did do some testing between Infiltrator's action and replacing it with Skillful Infiltrator, because as I showed you earlier, we're actually using the Liland, which she only gives you power and recovery through bondings. And so we took a hit in our critical chance as well as our armor penetration. I tested that out. It was awful. It increased our runtime by about 2 to 3 minutes, which it's already been increased, taking it off of a full DPS build. The deflection chance would have been nice. The increased run speed, of course, would have been nice. And the critical chance, it helped a lot, but we took such a hit in damage output by not having Infiltrator slotted for that consistent combat advantage. We had to go back to it. And that just goes to show how much more powerful this is than Whisper Knife when it comes to damage dealing, just because of powers like that. Invisible Infiltrator, we didn't mess with that at all because that increases our outgoing damage. We didn't want to affect that at all. Of course, have our power bonus slotted if you're in a guild that has that. Defense, we do not have Lifesteal Boon. A lot of people have that. I actually have the hit points bonus. The reason behind that is because the amount of healing that this build gives you, you actually do not need Lifesteal. And we do not have in our mounts insignia bonus slotted Assassin's Covenant, so we don't need to worry about that part. I'm going to make this quick and easy. Pretty much everything that we've chosen for these boons are regarding power, crit, armor pen, and or recovery. Mostly I use this in solo, and of course in heavy mobs, where even if you have a good guardian fighter, there'll be AoE, things like that that'll hit you. So deflecting an attack can actually help quite a bit. This is stuff that's subject to change as I test it out and see if I'm actually getting hit enough in good groups to warrant this. Right now, the way I have this set up is when you deflect attacks, you're going to heal yourself. When you heal yourself, you're going to increase some damage output, and by doing an extra hit of damage, all these little things kind of tie in together to do tons of little hits of damage to proc other things. And there's so much going on that hopefully there's some PC players out there that watch this and can give me insight on if it's actually doing anything, because of course we don't really have a good way of tracking, how these procs, these triggers are affecting things. Like right now, I'm using Rousing Warrant, so when healed, I gain up to 3,000 damage bonus on next attack, while I'm constantly being healed by different abilities and things like that. So usually these are about 20-25% chance when it says chance. So we would be looking at, a pretty good amount of times that we're going to get bonus 3,000 damage. Whereas opposed to anything else on here, 20 stacks, things like that. If it's proccing right as it states, which we all know these tooltips are not the most exact, I should be actually getting a decent amount of damage out of this for as many times as I'm healed, and amount of times that I'm dealing damage, of course, even to multiple enemies. A lot of things we have are put into control strength, especially since we're focusing more on combat advantage damage and not really critical. So as you can see on here, we have Baleful Clutch, grants 10% increased troll strength. And then on here, of course, we have chance on hit to apply Lingering Curse to your target. The reason why we picked this is because the other ones are mostly dependent, or these two, the Soul Siphon and Death Blessing, are dependent on a creature dying. I am looking at this. Reduced incoming healing. There's not too many enemies that are really taking advantage of healing from others. The Soul Siphon seems nice. And you, of course, can restore health. I don't know. Right now, I've got it for some extra damage output upon multiple enemies. This would be the biggest thing that I'd need your guys' help on, is what should I choose in the boons? Because right now at this point, there's so many different combinations we could work with since we're not focusing on being DPS. We could possibly get more support. As far as insignia bonuses, like I said, since we don't have lifesteal, we're not going to use defense, and all we have is deflect, and we don't want to take away from that. We don't run Assassin's Covenant. So we kept Artificer's Persuasion, because we're, of course, I mean, almost everyone should have that in there. Shepherd's Devotion is one of our support abilities. We increase our teammates' defense, deflection, and movement by 5% of our power for 10 seconds whenever we use a daily power. That's most important because we are always firing off daily powers because of our devoted sigil and, of course, our high AP gain. Calvary's Warning, I am using that currently. That can be replaced with Protector's Friendship if you'd like. The only reason I use it is because I do have a legendary mount, so I might as well use it. And then, of course, Protector's Camaraderie, power and defense for 10 seconds, stacking up to 4 times when your companion attacks, definitely. Magistrate's Patience. Okay, so this is one of our healings. So allies targets are healed for 3% of my maximum hit points. So that's another reason why we ditched lifesteal, is because they're going to be gaining healing based off what I do. And that's if I perform a critical strike. So that's why it's important to keep our crit chance at that 80% mark. And right now I'm going to be sitting at probably about 75 because I can't use the skillful infiltrator like I wanted. No lifesteal at all, but I have no problem with survivability. Now, when these are firing off, this power is usually about average, about maybe 80,000. Crit chance is, like I said, 75. Recovery, it's that 10k mark. So, I mean, that's really about it. Just focusing on every little thing that I can that can help with debuffing. I am using Lurker's Assault and Whirlwind of Blades currently, just because the Lurker's Assault for those one-off stronger mobs that, you know, kind of last after killing off most of the group. Because as far as debuffing goes, Courage Breaker is actually going to be used, spoiler, in the next build video when we look at single target support. So definitely I would love any input or feedback on if any of you have tried a healer or support class Trickster Rogue, you know, not focusing on DPS at all. And leave me your suggestions and things in the comments.
So long, family of mine. I have to go to work. Love, peace, and chicken grease.